What if I told you that spending your entire Saturday volunteering at a local food bank might actually be, well, it might be the most selfish, ego-driven part of your entire week?
It is a pretty jarring thought, isn't it?
Oh, completely. I mean, today we are looking at a stack of philosophical texts that argue our so-called good deeds are often just, our ego playing its most brilliant, subtle trick on us.
Right.
So if you are exhausted by a world that feels just incredibly polarized and loud, and you're searching for a way to cut through that static to find some genuine grounding wisdom, you are in the right place.
Welcome to today's deep dive.
It is so fantastic to be unpacking this with you. The materials we have on the table today they're dense, but they're deeply rewarding.
Yeah, for sure.
They challenge the fundamental ways we interact with the world around us. And more importantly, they force us to interrogate the hidden mechanics of our own minds. Definitely. So we've got three main sources pulling the weight today. They are a fascinating trio of philosophical essays titled 10, Human and Humanity, 9, Essay from the Self Too, and a synthesizing piece called The Architecture of Spiritual Rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
And our mission for this deep dive is to map what these texts consider the ultimate human journey. Like, we are going to start on the outside, looking at how we treat the people who frustrate us the most, and travel inward to the hidden, silent battles we fight against our own egos.
To really set the tone for this, I want you to try a quick mental exercise.
Okay, I'm ready.
Imagine your mind right now as a fractured, concrete cityscape. It's noisy, it's divided, it's heavy.
Right, just lots of traffic and smog.
Exactly. Now imagine looking up above that smog and seeing a serene, expansive, starry sky.
Oh, wow. That's a huge shift.
That shift in perspective is the exact trajectory of the text.
Yeah.
The core premise we're exploring is that true maturity doesn't mean destroying your ego. And it definitely doesn't mean blindly accepting toxic behavior from others. It is about mastering a very precise, disciplined art of balance.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the first major theme really hits hard.
It does.
The text states unequivocally that a truly mature human being has no other. Just no other.
Right.
Now, human nature dictates that when we feel threatened or annoyed, we create an other. We place ourselves at the center of the moral universe, and we just, push whoever disagrees with us to the fringes.
We do. We constantly do this.
And we think we're just distancing them. But the essay argues we are actually narrowing our own humanity.
It is a profound psychological trap. Throughout history, almost all of humanity's deepest societal fractures and worst atrocities have started with that exact mechanism.
The creation of the other.
Exactly, the creation of the other. You strip someone of their complexity, you reduce them to a single flawed trait or an opposing viewpoint, and suddenly, they aren't human anymore. They are just an obstacle. But the text offers a crucial distinction here, and we have to be really careful not to misinterpret it. Saying there is no other does not mean everything goes.
Right, so it's not a free pass for terrible behavior.
At all.
Like, if someone is acting maliciously, I don't just smile and pretend it's fine.
No, the subtlety lies in distinguishing between the person and the behavior.
Okay, how so?
Well, a human being is inherently worthy simply because they exist. But not every action they take is worthy. So we do not reject the person, we reject the wrong.
I see.
We preserve the dignity of the individual while absolutely refusing to tolerate their falsehood.
I was trying to visualize how this actually works in practice, and it reminds me of a computer operating system.
Oh, that's an interesting angle.
Yeah, like you don't throw away your whole laptop just because of a malware infection.
Right.
You target the virus with an antivirus program specifically to save the machine. You value the laptop. You hate the virus. The text is basically asking us to be like spiritual IT tech support with the people who frustrate us.
That is a phenomenal way to frame it. You are diagnosing and isolating the problem without destroying the entity hosting it.
Exactly.
And to maintain that mindset, the source material details 3 specific simultaneous balances we have to hold.
Okay, lay 'em on me.
First is the balance of the heart. Love must be present and hatred must be absent.
That's a tall order.
It is. Second, the balance of the mind. Truth must be present and denial must be absent.
Okay.
And third is the balance of behavior. Communication is present, but compromise on the truth is absent.
Wait, that third one is where I get tripped up. Communication without compromise.
Yeah.
Because we usually think of communication as a negotiation, right? Like where both sides give a little ground.
We do, but the text introduces this concept of positive action. And it explicitly notes that positive action isn't Pollyannaism.
Right. It's not toxic positivity where you sit in a bargaining room and say, this is fine.
Exactly, because escapism is just another form of denial. True positive action sees the flaw, acknowledges the fire in the room, but it refuses to become destructive in response. It requires realism and compassion to walk hand in hand. You act on a deep-seated principle rather than just reacting with a flare-up of anger.
It's the difference between generating a solution and just generating more heat.
Beautifully said, yes.
Well, the sources actually anchor these ideas with some incredible poetic couplets. I have them right here.
Oh, please read them.
So the first one perfectly captures that malware analogy we were just talking about. It says, do not erase the person, erase the wrong. Protect the heart where truth belongs.
That is so precise.
Yeah. And the second one contrasts how we usually react versus how we should react. To destroy requires anger, sharp and fast. To build requires patience that will last.
Think about the mechanics behind that second couplet. Destruction is fundamentally easy. I mean, gravity does half the work for you.
Right. Kicking down a sandcastle takes 1 second.
Exactly. Building something, whether it's a skyscraper or a bridge of communication with someone who wronged you, it requires a massive, sustained application of energy.
Yeah.
It requires recognizing human potential, knowing that people can err, but they can return. They can break, but they can mend.
Which, this brings up a massive question for me.
Okay.
If this concept of positive action is so deeply logical, like if it makes so much sense to isolate the malware and save the laptop, why is it so impossibly hard to actually do it when someone cuts me off in traffic or undermines me at work?
Because we are constantly looking for the enemy in the wrong place.
What do you mean?
We scan the horizon for opposition. We're blaming the coworker, the driver, the system. But the text shifts the focus entirely inward. The real struggle, the fiercest battle you will ever fight, isn't against that external frustration.
It's not.
No. It is against the internal reflections of 4 specific things. First, disbelief, which the text defines as actively ignoring the truth. Second, the self, which is our raw egocentrism. Third, Satan, described conceptually here as the misleading entity that whispers falsehoods until they sound beautiful.
Oh, wow.
And fourth, hypocrisy.
Okay, let's zoom in on hypocrisy, because the essay redefines it in a way that feels completely upside down to how we use the word in modern culture.
What's fascinating here is that we usually define hypocrisy as a social lie.
Right, like saying one thing to the public and doing another in private to trick society.
Exactly. But the text defines it as an inner-outer disharmony. It's a physiological and spiritual division between your inner truth and your outward behavior, to the point where you actually start deceiving yourself.
Wow. Deceiving yourself.
And the most dangerous part of this mechanism, it happens when even our inherent goodness becomes a tool for self-glorification.
Okay, wait. This goes back to the hook we started the show with, and I really want to press on this.
Go for it.
If I do a genuinely good deed, let's say I spend my entire Saturday volunteering at a food bank, or I help a neighbor fix their roof, but deep down, I secretly hope someone takes a picture and puts it on social media so people praise me.
Yeah.
Is the text saying my charity is actually just a disguise for my ego?
Yes. The text would argue that is your ego playing its absolute most subtle, brilliant game.
Man, that's harsh.
It is. In the original terminology of the text, the word used is nafs.
Nafs. Okay.
It is often translated simply as self or ego, but mechanically it refers to our basest, most primal appetites.
Right.
It is the part of us that continuously seeks recognition, superiority, and control. It constantly wants to consume.
So when I volunteer for the likes...
When you volunteer, but your underlying motive is to be praised as the kind of person who volunteers, the nafs has hijacked your morality.
Yeah.
You aren't feeding the hungry. You are feeding your own pride.
That is an incredibly uncomfortable mirror to look into.
Very uncomfortable.
Yeah. Because it implies the nafs can hide behind literally anything, even our best virtues. So how do you even begin to fight an enemy that wears your own good deeds as camouflage?
The text provides a mechanism for this. It's essentially an internal accountability audit.
An accountability audit. I like that.
It requires you to pause before, during, and after an action and ask yourself 3 vital questions to pierce through that self-deception.
What are they?
1, why did I actually do this?
Okay.
2, would I act the exact same way if I knew absolutely no one in the world would ever see me?
Oh, man.
And 3, is there any hidden pride within me right now?
Would I act the same if unseen? That is a brutal litmus test for integrity.
It really is.
Like, if the answer is no, then the action was never about the outcome. It was just a performance for an audience.
Precisely. And there's a couplet in the text that summarizes this internal battlefield perfectly. The fiercest foe is hidden within. To conquer the self is the truest win. You could conquer the entire external world, fix every broken system out there. But if your nafs is still secretly driving the car, you haven't actually achieved anything of lasting value.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Realizing that the ego is in the driver's seat is terrifying, but overcoming it requires a massive shift in how we view the rules we follow.
Yes.
Like, we have to change the fundamental mechanism of our own morality.
It is the shift from external control to internal control, from obligation to responsibility.
Yes. The source material uses this brilliant everyday analogy about traffic rules, and I just have to share it.
Please do.
Think about driving up to an intersection with a red light. If you slam on the brakes purely because you see a camera on the pole and you are terrified of getting a $200 ticket in the mail, that is obligation.
Right, an external force.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is an external control forcing your behavior. You don't want to stop, but the threat makes you. But if you stop at that red light because you genuinely value human life and you don't want to cause an accident, even if it's 3:00 a.m. in the middle of nowhere with no cops and no cameras anywhere, that is responsibility. That is internal control.
And that transition from obligation to responsibility is the defining trajectory of human moral development.
Yeah.
Now, to make that jump, the text argues you have to embrace a specific mechanism of faith.
Okay, how does faith play into the traffic light?
Well, it defines faith not just as memorizing a list of facts, because a human being simply cannot know the infinite complexities of the universe.
True.
Faith is defined here as knowledge combined with trust. It is relying on the ultimate truth of the one who does know. The illusion that we are at the center of the universe is our greatest trap, and the text frames prayer as the act of repositioning ourselves back to reality.
But isn't a healthy dose of fear necessary sometimes?
How do you mean?
Let me push back on this traffic light idea. If I don't fear the ticket, isn't it just human nature to slip into bad habits? Like, how does the text expect us to maintain this high-minded, love-based responsibility on a terrible Tuesday when we're running late and just want to blow through the intersection?
That is a very grounded question, and the text actually addresses it by explaining that fear and love are developmental stages.
Stages.
Yes. When our ego, our nafs, is wild and unrestrained, fear is absolutely necessary.
So the ticket matters at first.
Exactly. The fear of consequences, the fear of accountability, it acts as a temporary scaffold. It draws a hard boundary to stop you from running the light and hurting someone.
Okay, that makes sense.
But you cannot stay in a state of fear forever. Morality based solely on the terror of punishment requires constant, exhausting mental energy.
Right.
It just manages behavior. It doesn't transform your character.
It's like holding a beach ball underwater.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, the second you get tired and stop applying force, it just shoots right back up to the surface.
Exactly. But as you mature, the mechanism changes. You begin to understand the intrinsic value of the rules. You see that the red light isn't a restriction on your freedom. It's a protection of human life. Your actions shift from obligated I must to a willing I desire to.
Wow.
Fear requires energy to monitor the boundary. Love requires zero energy to stay within the boundary because you no longer have any desire to cross it.
And what happens to the people who refuse to make that transition? Like the ones who just keep centering their own ego, rejecting the rules they don't like, and ignoring the truth because it's inconvenient?
They experience something the text calls cognitive blindness.
Cognitive blindness.
And the mechanics of this are chilling. When you first encounter a truth that challenges your ego, you feel friction. You feel uncomfortable.
Right, like a guilty conscience.
Yes. But if you actively reject it because it doesn't suit your desires, and you repeat that rejection over and over, you carve a new neural and spiritual pathway. Eventually, the friction disappears. The heart becomes sealed. It is habit turning into destiny. You literally lose the capacity to perceive the truth at all.
Habit turning into destiny, that is a terrifying phrase. It's like calluses forming over your conscience until you are completely numb.
That's exactly what it is.
So for you listening right now, examine your own daily routine. Look at how you treat your family or why you do your work. How much of your day is driven by that fear-based obligation, dodging the ticket, versus love-based sincere responsibility?
It completely reframes how you view your own motivations. It is the difference between being a prisoner of your own life and being the architect of it.
Which perfectly sets up the final and really most crucial piece of this deep dive.
Let's hear it.
If we manage to avoid that cognitive blindness and we make the shift from fear to love, where does this incredibly difficult journey actually lead us? What is the destination?
It leads us to what the culminating essay calls the architecture of spiritual rebirth. And the climactic insight here, the piece of wisdom that flips almost all modern self-help on its head, is that the ultimate goal of this work is not to destroy the self.
Wait, really? Because almost every spiritual guru or mindfulness podcaster out there says exactly that. Kill the ego, destroy the self, achieve ego death.
I know, and that is why this text is so revolutionary. The essay explicitly states that the nafs, the ego, is not meant to be eradicated. It is meant to be transformed. Yes, if you destroy the ego, you destroy your drive, your passion, your very engine for action. We aren't trying to rip the engine out of the car. We are trying to refine it and learn how to steer it.
How does that transformation actually happen, though? What are the mechanics of refining the ego instead of killing it?
Well, let me pull up my notes here because this is structured like a blueprint.
Okay, I can see you literally making notes on this glowing architectural blueprint on your tablet. It's a great visual.
I'm a visual thinker. So the text outlines a fascinating 4-stage evolution of the self. Think of it as an architectural blueprint for human consciousness.
I'm tracking.
We all start at stage 1, the commanding self. In this state, the raw nafs is completely in charge.
The untamed ego.
Exactly. It is rebellious, driven entirely by primitive desires, anger, and self-interest. Commands you to do whatever feels good in the moment, regardless of the consequences.
So this is the stage where you're blowing through the red lights, creating others, and letting the malware take over the laptop.
Precisely. But if you start applying that internal accountability audit we discussed, asking yourself why you do what you do, you force a disruption.
Okay.
And that forces you into stage 2. The self-reproaching self.
Self-reproaching.
Yes. This is where the inner critic wakes up. You still make mistakes, your ego still trips you up, but now you feel guilt, you feel remorse.
That sounds like a miserable stage to be in. You're suddenly hyper-aware of your own hypocrisy.
Oh, it is agonizing. It's pure friction. But that friction is the evidence of growth.
Okay, that's encouraging at least.
By repeatedly forcing your ego to yield to the truth, even when it hurts, you are spiritually carving out new default behaviors. And as that repetition builds, the friction begins to fade, launching you into the 3rd stage, the inspired self.
What does the inspired self look like?
At this stage, doing the right thing no longer requires exhausting willpower. Love has finally outweighed fear. You are inspired to act morally because it aligns with your true nature, not because you're fighting your desires. And that momentum carries you to the ultimate destination, the 4th stage, the tranquil self, or in the original terminology, matmina.
The tranquil self, the matmina, even just the phonetic sound of that word feels grounding. What are the mechanics of this final stage?
The root of matmina implies a deep, unshakable serenity, a heart at rest.
A heart at rest.
At this stage, the inner conflict is completely gone. Morality, positive action, worship, none of it is a heavy burden or a forced obligation anymore. It is a state of total harmony.
That sounds incredible.
The person who achieves this highest understanding isn't someone who magically erased their ego. It is someone who actively wrestled with it, learned its tricks, and refined its raw energy into something beautiful.
Yeah.
The problem within us, our ego, our desires, our deepest flaws, is actually our greatest potential. It is the fuel that, once directed by truth, propels us upward.
You know, that completely removes the shame of having an ego in the first place.
It really does.
Like, you don't have to hate yourself for having selfish impulses. You just have to recognize them as raw, unrefined energy.
Exactly. And the final couplet from the source material captures this architectural triumph beautifully. The self is not erased, but shaped by truth refined. In the heart thus purified, serenity is quietly enshrined.
What an incredible blueprint.
Powerful stuff.
Let's recap the massive ground we've covered today. We started on the outside, realizing that to be fully human, we have to refuse to create an other. We have to operate like a spiritual surgeon or IT tech support, targeting the disease of wrong behavior while fiercely protecting the dignity of the person. Then we turned inward. We confronted the really uncomfortable truth that our own ego, our nafs, can weaponize even our good deeds.
Volunteering for the likes.
Exactly. We armed ourselves with an accountability audit to catch that hypocrisy. Then we explored how true morality evolves from the exhausting mechanism of fear-based obligation to the effortless momentum of love-based responsibility.
The traffic light shift.
Right. And finally, we arrived at the architecture of spiritual rebirth, discovering that our goal isn't the death of the ego, but its evolution through 4 stages, ultimately arriving at the Mayana, the tranquil self.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it leaves us with a fascinating, almost paradoxical question to consider.
Okay, what is it?
If the ultimate goal of spiritual rebirth is not to destroy the ego, but to refine it, what if our greatest personal flaws and deepest insecurities are actually the exact raw materials we need to build our highest selves?
Oh.
What if the parts of yourself you dislike the most are simply waiting for their transformation?
Man, what if your flaws are your raw materials? That is a profound dilemma to chew on, because the tranquil self isn't passive, it's just perfectly aimed.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for taking this deep dive with us today. For you listening, keep asking those difficult questions, keep running your internal audits, and most importantly, remember that your flaws aren't things to be thrown away, they're just the raw materials waiting for their transformation. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.